flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order of business tonight is a report from Frank Shamble on insurance quotes.
Wow,
That's 1A, and you're it.
cool. Okay, we had 3 agencies bid. Chauvin Agency representing Kemper, and the Barge Agency representing Trident, and Lattimore Agency representing Selective Insurance. 3 bids are as follows. Chauvin Agency with Kemper, $149,554. Barge Agency with Trident at $124,808. And Lattimore is Selective at $96,292.14. I gave my report to the insurance committee this afternoon, and there are some significant differences between these quotations. I guess at this point I'd like to address the insurance committee. We talked a great deal about the commercial umbrella policy and the difference in conditions coverage as part of the property insurance. So I'll turn it over to those 2 members at this time.
Well, we did have two fairly substantial concerns on the differences from the quotes as far as the DICs. And I think what we have to do is decide whether DICs, for those that don't know, is an exclusion part of a policy. Frank, if I mess this up correctly, would you please?
Well, actually, I can explain that the
Okay.
difference in conditions coverage, it's a component of the property policy that you currently don't have. What it basically does is it removes flood and earthquake exclusions from the existing property coverage form. Okay? It takes the exclusion out for flood and earthquake. Now, on your existing policy, I believe, Gene, there is $500,000 worth of flood and earthquake. But the problem is that you got a blanket property limit of $17,669,814, which covers all of the village buildings and contents at those locations. The Chauvin bid includes coverage for 17 million, whatever that number was, 17,669,814. The Labarge quote does not include any coverage for difference in conditions, and the Lattimore quote includes coverage for 1 million, and then they did give us a quote for the maximum limit that their company will write is 10 million, and the premium for that is $11,747. So you would have to add that to the 96,292.14.
The question is whether we should consider earthquake and flood insurance at this time in our history. 5 years ago, I said no. But today I get a little jumpy about these things. And, you know, I've never heard of high water in this area in the 40 years I've lived up here until 1996, and then again just a little while ago. And haven't had an earthquake that caused any damage in Rouses Point that I can remember. Calvin, you lived here all your life. You could remember better than I could about it. Even though your life hasn't been that long yet.
Last earthquake I remember like that when I was probably about 4 or 5 years old, and that's 50 years ago.
So, you know, do we want to take a chance and not worry about that kind of coverage and then, you know, something happens, you know, geologically, I guess, Jim, we sit on the fault line, don't we? And, you know, sooner or later, but it might be later, we're gonna have a problem. And is that going to happen in 2002, 2003, or is it gonna happen in 2100? We don't know. So I think we've gotta consider what we wanna do about that. And Frank, on the other one, the blanket coverage, could you explain that for me?
On the blanket building and content?
The umbrella.
Oh, on the umbrella, okay. Interestingly, the Chauvin agency with Kemper, first of all, you currently do not have an umbrella liability policy, which is something that you really need to have. What that umbrella policy does is it goes above and beyond the liability limits that you have on your underlying policies. The Chauvin bid with Kemper for a 1 million umbrella is $15,000. With Labarge and Trident, it's $5,685, and with Latchmore's and Selective, it's $6,592. So, I mean, that's an additional expenditure that, you know, if you so choose to buy that policy, you're going to be faced with. Now, the other thing that's interesting is that in the Labarge quotation with Trident, her general liability was quoted at $2 million per occurrence instead of $1 million. So that's something else you can think about. I mean, right now, currently, you have $1 million worth of coverage from a general liability standpoint. If you were interested in the Labarge quote and you did not buy an umbrella, you would have $2 million per occurrence under the general liability. But you're looking at additional expenditure for that umbrella policy if you so choose.
I mean, doctors have it, and I even looked into for myself. I mean, just because you know, just to come.
This village really needs to have an umbrella liability policy, especially if you only have $1 million under the general liability. And even if you're looking at the Labarge quotation, $2 million for this municipality is not enough. I've got clients with smaller budgets than yours, and they've got $5 million umbrellas. You really need to have this policy. And yes, it is an additional expenditure, but to protect the village, you really need to have it.
One lawsuit or bad accident, and you eat it all up. So.
Question, does that include fire department compensation, that bid?
You mean workers' comp for the fire department? No, it's not.
So we're looking at an added charge right there, because we have to look at that policy runs out in August.
That was not put out for bid, okay, because that is part of the medical. Can we put the non-medical out for bid? The workers' comp?
Working truck, I never thought that would require medical.
Well, it didn't go out for bid. I mean, it wasn't part of these bid specs. If you want it to go out for bid, we can do that.
I know that we got to look at a new company, because the company we're with is no longer writing workers' comp for VFBL.
Right. I mean, this quotation does include property, liability, and equipment coverage for the VFD, but not for the workers' comp. I think the board needs to make a decision as to how important that difference in conditions coverage is, and how important the umbrella liability policy is, and then you can go from there in making your decision.
Such large discrepancies from, like, when you look at the property, you go from $12,000, $32,000. I mean, $20,000. That's a lot of money.
There's a huge difference when you go down this thing line by line, and a lot of it is carrier specific. Some of it is their reinsurance treaties with their reinsurance companies. They all pretty much quoted the same thing. They all had standard specifications to bid off them. So, from a coverage standpoint, everything seems to be there so far that I can tell. But you're right, there's significant differences line by line when you go down through this, and it's pretty amazing.
And some of them are $600 right across the board, which is just pennies.
I haven't seen that.
69,000, and then you go to 20,000 now. I mean, $40,000. I mean, it just doesn't. Even if you add them up, 69 and 12, that's 79, 80. That's 40,000 average. So then you got 35 for the second average, and 25 for the second average. Big swings. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't explain it.
Well, look at the umbrella.
Recommendation, John.
My recommendation, Mr. Mayor, is that the entire board hasn't had a chance to review all of these figures at this point. And I would ask if, since we can't sit on this forever because we have to have an insurance in place by the 1st of July, my recommendation or my request to you, sir, is that you call a special meeting for Thursday or Friday afternoon, and we'll deal with it at that time. We have to get it done with at least a week before the policy goes into effect.
Time?
You do something Friday, 4 o'clock, 3:30?
Is that all right?
3:45.
3:45, okay. Compromise.
We're gonna do Friday at 3:45.
Is that okay?
That's okay with me. I'm working days.
All right, so you want to postpone this till Friday?
I just don't see how we can,
We had,
yeah, no,
uh,
we spent.
I don't even know any of the figures.
well, we had talked about this afternoon also about maybe trying to get a little bit of historical data to see whether or not the earthquake and flood protection is something that we want to investigate. Just so at least we have an idea of what's happened historically. And we could also take a look at that over the course of the week.
After Mr. Shambo made his presentation this afternoon, I guess we were even more confused just because there's so much complexity to it.
Did you want to make a recommendation, or did you want to just? I mean, I don't know how to.
Well, my question to the insurance committee was, you know, how important is this? How important do they feel the difference in conditions coverage is? How important is the umbrella? Because once those issues are determined and we get the remaining data that the two commissioners are looking for, you know, then it would be pretty straightforward, I think.
There's Jack every quota too, looks like.
And we have time to advertise?
If you announce it tonight, will this be shown before Friday, Calvin?
Maybe.
Oh, that's a good answer.
That's very good. The law requires that we give as much notice as practicable. So if this is shown between then, and I will post it, but I doubt very much I'll be able to get it published. But I will post it all over the village.
There's also some additional information that I've requested from the three parties that bid this, and I don't have it all back yet. So that would certainly, you know, help. I mean, we need clarification from Latchmore's on some portions of the GL. We need clarification from Andre on the boiler machinery, and we need some clarification from Gene Chauvin on his difference in conditions coverage. And, you know, these guys have been knocking themselves out to get this information, and, you know, they're at the mercy of the carrier. So, you know, once that information is disseminated down, then, you know, we can get it to the two committee members, and then they can make up their minds.
Do you need a motion on that?
Yeah.
You have.
Any second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded that we meet Friday at 3:45 to discuss insurance issues. Any more discussion?
Where are you going to meet, George?
I was just going to ask you, specify where you're going to meet.
We'll meet at the village hall.
Right.
Any other discussion? There being no discussion, all those in favor, vote by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried.
And I'd like to thank Mr. Shambo for all the work that he's done in preparation for this.
This is probably something we're gonna have to do every year too, the way the insurance rates continue.
I wouldn't recommend doing that every year. I don't think anybody bid on it if you do it every year.
No.
Oh, no?
No.
Every 3 years should be submitted.
Oh, 3 years ago. Oh, okay.
Okay. I open the meeting for comments from the public at this time. Anybody wishing to address the board may do so at this time.
Hi, Gary Babby. I'd just like to talk about the Smith Street at the south end of town. Up on the southwest end of it, we're looking to extend the storm sewer and possibly change the size of the water line up there. I guess what we're requesting at this point is to see what the village can do to I don't know, help with some of the costs. I noticed in the guidelines on your development paperwork here. It says that they supply pipe and couplings for storm sewers if the village deems storm sewers are necessary. And I guess what we're looking for is to see if the village is willing to supply the pipe and the couplings so that that storm sewer can be extended up to the end of the village line.
Your Honor, I would request that the village board assign this project to the village engineer's office so that I can work with Mr. Babby and look at the situation, all of the utilities, and the future development of the property.
I don't have a problem with that.
How many places are you looking to expand?
We're not expanding. I mean,
There's a problem up there that has to be taken care
Oh,
of.
okay, all right.
well, see, the storm sewer stops probably 400 or 500 feet down the street
Oh, I see.
from the end of the village line, so it doesn't drain any of the properties up there. So it needs to be extended.
We don't need a motion for that, that's okay. Gotta do that.
No, not as long as
Gary,
you will make
there's
an
no Doug?
arrangement.
No, but I will after the meeting.
We'll get together and they come up with a plan, and I'm sure that the board will do what it can to
Okay,
assist you.
all right, thank you.
Yep. Anybody else wish to address this time? If not, you have a chance at the end of the meeting. Minutes of the previous meeting. I'll have copies. Is there any addition or deletion? I can't comment because I wasn't here.
You missed a good one, George.
Who would accept the minutes as written?
Second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? There being no discussion, all those in favor, vote by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Bills.
We have one bill to add tonight, it's the Elgin Pipe Band, $700.
Calvin, what was that, Dory?
How much is it?
$700.
To where?
Elgin Pipe Band.
Pipe band for the parade.
Oh, pipe band,
Pipe
okay.
One other band that we had last year.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you. That's gonna be in the parade.
Okay.
We have the money and everything, so it's just a matter of-
Okay, thank you, Arson. I need a motion, if there's no other questions,
I'd like to make a motion to pay the bills
as amended.
as amended.
Second?
Motion made and seconded, any discussion? There being no discussion, all those in favor, vote by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Correspondence.
First piece of correspondence you have comes from the New York State Department of Transportation. It's addressed to the clerk. It's just to confirm that the New York State Department of Transportation has reserved Halsted Hall for Wednesday, July 24th to hold a public informational meeting for the Rouses Point Village project. It will be held twice, in the afternoon from 2 to 4 and in the evening 6 to 8. This is also going to be posted, and I believe that the DOT is going to advertise this in our local newspaper. I don't know if the mayor wants to add anything more to this, but this will actually be discussing.
Gone on with it.
Yeah, it might just as well. We had a meeting with DOT about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And this is a reconstruction of Champlain Street, where I believe that they are going to be lowering the hills on both sides of the underpass. They're going back about a quarter of a mile towards the Walmart and start shaving the road down. It's quite an involved process. I was totally impressed after it got done, but after some of the figures that were tossing around, like we have to move some of our electric that we just put in, that we spent all the money to have the plans drawn to have it done. And when Bobby told them the price, I think they swallowed pretty hard. Like $400,000 to move one box. But we said, hey, we drew the prints. You know, it cost us $30,000 to get the prints put for you. They were approved. She said the young lady said that's what happens when construction don't talk to planning. It's their responsibility if they decide that they're going to move it. It's not ours. They're going to eliminate all the ditching. There will be no ditching whatsoever on Champlain Street. They will be putting in new storm sewers with drainage all the way down. There will be sidewalks, 5-foot sidewalks on both sides from Mountain Mark, is that what it is? Mountain Mark down to, I think, Elm Street. Or maybe a little further, but they can't go from Maple Street on because of the way the houses are made there. They're going to extend our water lines, our mains, up to, Ashwood Drive, all the way up to Ashwood Drive. I was just totally amazed because everything we asked they're going to do. So, and it should be a much, much better situation when it's all done. Except, I don't know if they're gonna put that sleeve in or not. I haven't, they gotta deal with the town in that. The town asked to have a sleeve put through, and, they said they had no information at that point of doing it. But, the way they wanted to do it, they wanted, I think, 90 grand because they wanted to put the pipe in too at the same time. I said the village won't go that expense, that's strictly the town. And I did turn it over to the town supervisor. So I think people will be impressed what's going to be done on Champlain Street. I think it's going to be, oh yeah, they're going to put a turning lane in at Harris Road, or at Academy Street. They're going to put the third lane in there, so you're going to have a turning lane. You won't have that back up on 11.
Oh, that's good.
They are going to widen the corner down here on 11 and 9B. That'll be something. A lot of things going to change there. They're putting in a complete new storm sewer from the underpass down through. So that's some of the things they're going to do. Anyway, they'll be here for questions and answers, and if anybody wants to come and question and answer them, you're more than welcome.
We have another piece of correspondence that was just given to me a few minutes ago. It's from Montgomery Hose Hook and Ladder Company. It's addressed to the mayor and village trustees. We wish to inform you of a new member who has been approved to our company for a probationary period of 6 months. Kevin Chagnon, Maple Street, Rouses Point, New York. Please act on this member as soon as possible.
Make a motion to commit him to the fire department.
Motion made, second, any discussion? Kevin was a member before and moved out of town, and he's out to, way out to Seattle area. Just come back in, and wish to rejoin. He's a
Great.
good member.
Very good.
He was.
Good.
Any other discussion? Being no discussion, all those in favor, vote by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried.
That's all the correspondence.
Thank you, Bev. Report of the mayor and trustees. First thing on my agenda is the NICOM meeting, which I attended the 2nd, 3rd, 4th of June. I brought back some material for you, Kelly, on zoning boards and planning boards.
Great.
And probably the same material that Bev gave you, but they had a session on that. It was pretty informative, but it was also very vague. They had 2 lawyers up there. You ever try to listen to 2 lawyers talk? But anyway, it was, they brought out a lot of good points, and I brought back the information.
Great.
We had a nice talk from Senator Schumer, and in the afternoon, we had another talk from Senator Clinton. I won't go there. Other than that, there was some other things, sessions going on, but you can't attend them all.
Right.
So I attended the one on zoning because I thought there was, you had some interest in that. They had one on fire departments for new board members. So, but I did talk to John Galligan about a couple of things, and I'm supposed to give him a call and see what goes on with that. And someone will talk to you about sometime.
Okay.
Good. Anyway, other than that, it was a nice get together. We had a keynote speaker by the name of Short. I bought 2 of his books too. He was the last Medal of Honor recipient during the Vietnam War. What a speaker he was! You could have heard a pin drop that place. Guy was fantastic. Talked about the Medal of Honor. He talked about he received the Medal of Honor, and he said it wasn't mine, it was my men. And it was just, and I bought 2 of the books, one from my one for my son and one for my daughter, and he autographed them. It's all about the mill. He was just tremendous. Sunday night they had a ventriloquist for entertainment. Oh my God, was that funny? Everybody thought he was going to be dead. Boy, when they got started, that place was roaring. And I thank the board for allowing me to go. Next thing on my agenda is resolution Main Street revitalization grant. And we have to, whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Rouses Point wishes to locate funding for downtown revitalization within the village, and whereas the Village of Rouses Point is preparing a grant application entitled Downtown Revitalization to be submitted to the New York State Department of State for such funding, and whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Rouses Point is firmly committed to the goal outlined in this grant application, now for be it resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Village of Rouses Point pledges its support to this project and agrees to commit the required fundings as outlined in the grant application to successfully completion of this revitalization project. And the following is put to a vote. We'll call a vote. Trustee Huckrow.
I'm sorry, I have a couple of questions, George.
Okay.
I just, if we can. First of all, I haven't read the grant application, so I find it very difficult to be committed to the goals when I haven't seen the application. And secondly, agrees to commit the required funding as outlined in the grant application. How much is that?
It's in the,
Approximately 20. But that can be in-kind services, materials.
But 20% of how much?
This was
90,000.
120,000.
120.
So it's about 24,000.
About 20.
But we should get reimbursed if we get the grant, though, right, for that?
No.
No, that's your commitment.
Have we,
But that does not mean you write a check for 20,000.
I understand that,
It's
but
all
The reason why you haven't seen it, Kelly, and to be fair with you, was it Wednesday morning? Wednesday morning, we received a telephone call from the Department of State, and we had to have this grant application in by Friday. And we started to hustle and bustle to put this thing together. Now, most of this grant application, what's going to do is hire, or I guess that's the word to use, hire
architectural studies and
Yeah.
whatever.
studies to put a program together for us, and then it goes on from there. That's basically what this grant's going to take place, or do for us. We were quite surprised, and it's got to do with this, I guess we have to say it sometime, this quality community thing that's been going on since January. And it's starting to move forward. And like I said to the gentleman, I said, "Don't be quick, if you'd have told us this back in January, we could have worked on it." But they go, and that's the reason why. And we have to have a resolution from the board in order for the grant to go.
right, but what I'm saying, I feel like they're forcing our hand, because without even having had a chance to look at it, we have to vote on something that I haven't even seen. I don't know that I can vote on it. So, I mean, I don't know if this needs to be a unanimous resolution or what, but I don't know. It seems very nebulous.
It's not unanimous resolution, is it?
I have no idea.
Majority. It's majority. But in
I mean, I
order to
don't-
be able to go forward to any further steps, we've got to, and we didn't know this until
Right, but we're agreeing to commit a certain amount of funding, whether it's in-kind services or writing them a check, doesn't matter. We're agreeing to commit a pretty good chunk of change to this project, and it just seems very vague to me. I don't know.
If we don't spend it, we won't get it. I mean, if we don't try to get it, so it's kind of important that we take this first step, I think.
I mean, when are we
What I-
expected to provide this? I mean, is this supposed to be out of this year's budget, out of this year's manpower? I mean,
I think, Bev, correct me if this isn't true, but I think we've already spent it, even though it wasn't our money, right? The grant that we got for the streetlights came from a completely different agency and can be used as part of our commitment. See, that cost us absolutely nothing out of
Right,
Rouses Point money.
right,
No labor, no wiring, no nothing. That was all covered by the grant.
okay. And that's what this is talking about?
And this would be, that would be, according to Peter Waltz, that would be anything that we did retroactive to the 2nd of April, was it? The 20th of April. 2nd of April.
I think it's the 2nd of April. But we'll have to check our notes.
Yeah, but we specifically addressed that.
And I think that includes wiring and
Yes.
the labor that the men have done. And, you know, we will have to go back and, you know, itemize all that to come up with a dollar figure. But I don't really have any doubt that we can reach the figure that he set forth for us.
I think it's already done.
I think so too.
And it really don't cost
in
us.
a way, you know, I mean, I was broadsided with it.
Right, I just don't like the idea of being forced to vote on something where it specifically refers to a grant application that I have not even seen, and I just can't vote, I can't vote yes on it, I'm sorry, but I can't. I haven't read it, so,
You won't dance on the next one either. Anyway, roll call vote. You done?
yes, thank you, yeah.
Yeah. Roll call vote. Trustee Huckrow.
Aye.
Trustee Penfield.
I abstain.
Trustee Jefferson.
Aye.
And the mayor votes aye. Second one, resolution. Where the Board of Trustees of the Village of Rouses Point applying to the New York State Office of Parks and Recreation and Historic Preservation for a grant under Environmental Protection Fund or Clean Water Air Bond Act for a park project to be located within the Village of Rouses Point, and whereas the requirements under the rules of this program, the governing body of the municipality must display its approval and endorsing of the project. Therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Trustees of Rouses Point does hereby approve and endorse the application under the Environmental Protection Fund or Clean Water, Clean Air Bond Act for park project known as Historic Museum and Park Improvements located in the village. Therefore, be it resolved, the village is unable to complete projects that property shall be forwarded and maintained. Should the village be unable to complete the project, said property shall be forwarded and maintained by the village of Rouses Point as a municipal park coincides with the rules and promulgations of the Office of Parks and Recreation. Anyway, what this one is on the Delaware and Hudson Station. And one of the things that we put in for in the wish list is an Olympic-sized swimming pool right here.
Wow.
And this is part of the front one, but separate because it's a separate grant going to a separate agency. And this is the way we were told to do it. And that is for $98,000.
But this one doesn't ask us for matching funds, is that right?
I think
Oh,
this
this
one
one does.
does.
There's also, originally somebody had told us 50%, but Peter Walsh told us 25%. Again, we have the materials already to donate to this project, which again won't cost us, you know, it's already here.
And the other thing, Kelly, you gotta understand that pool ain't gonna be built this year, or next
No.
year. You're talking
I didn't even know
maybe
there, I mean,
3 or 4 years down the
This is
road.
a multi-year thing.
is this something on the rec center property?
Yeah, right back on the building.
Really?
Yeah.
George will be the lifeguard. If it ever happens.
If it ever, if it ever happens. Also, it's to get money to help revitalize the D&H station.
So the property that they're referring to in the fourth paragraph is the property where the station is that
I
right?
would think so. Because, number one, we did get the DOT clearance on our Delaware Hudson Station. And Mr. Dennison sent to me last week the contract
Right,
to sign. That is in our attorney's hands for his interpretation before I sign it.
right.
And we're waiting for that. And he said as soon as we sign it and he signs it, he'll tell us when they're gonna have a closing date. So, bottom line is at some point this summer, the station's gonna belong to the village of Rouses Point for $5,000, which we have already approved. Anyway, is there any other questions on this grant application?
So this
Basically-
one also requires us to match some sort of funds, is
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah.
Okay, but it's not written in this one the way it's written in the other one.
That's only because that's what they require, because this one goes to Department of Parks and the other one goes to Department of State. Department of State, it has to be in that resolution, written the way that it was put in there. This one does not require it put into the resolution part, but if you will notice that there are certifications on the back,
Right, okay.
whereby it is written into that.
And so we think it's 25% of that $98,500 figure.
He said about, he said 20 to 25%.
And we don't have this in writing anywhere, or there's nothing that, I mean, how do we know it? I mean, not that I don't trust what this gentleman is saying, but if we originally heard 50 and now we're hearing 20 or 25, who knows?
We didn't originally hear anything. We were told that by another party because that's the way it worked with some other grants.
Okay,
And we asked Mr. Wall specifically what the village contribution had to be on it. And then again, it could be in-kind services, materials, labor, whatever.
Any other questions? Roll call vote. Trustee Huckrow.
Aye.
Trustee Penfield.
I abstain.
Trustee Jefferson.
Aye.
And the mayor votes aye. And I have one other thing. I'm requesting executive session on contract negotiations. I guarantee you it'll be very short. I put that in form of a motion.
Second.
Roll call vote. Trustee Huckrow.
Aye.
Trustee Penfield.
Aye.
Trustee Jefferson.
Aye.
And the mayor votes aye. And that's it for me. Kelly, just combine yours together when we get to you.
Okay,
Yeah, Trustee Huckrow.
Not the report from the nurse?
No, Kelly's gonna do that.
Oh, she's gonna do it. Oh,
Yeah, she's the
okay.
second on that committee.
Okay. All right. First, Mr. Mayor, is the monthly work report from the water plant. Again, it's pretty routine stuff that's happening out there. And then we have a request for permission for Dave Supernaut and Eugene Leclerc to attend a one-day training seminar in Peru, sponsored by the Northern New York Water Works Association. They'll get 5 credit hours toward recertification. We'll put that in the form of a motion.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? There being no discussion, all those in favor, vote by your consent of aye.
aye.
Those opposed? The motion carried.
Another request for Mike Riley and Eugene Leclerc to attend a one-day training seminar in Canton on July 11th, being sponsored by the New York Rural Water Association. And they will get 5 credit hours toward recertification. And I'll put that in form of motion.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? There being no discussion, all those in favor, vote by your consent of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried.
And update on water projects. We have plenty of water around this point.
Yes, we do.
On the water storage tank project, as everybody knows, we've broken ground and the project has begun. We've got we would have had a big swimming pool out there, but there was some ditching done that prevented it. And to give you a more detailed report here, tonight Eric Schwenke is with me. But I'd like to digress just for a second to address a question that the mayor posed to me earlier in the week regarding the project and construction inspection. He was interested to know who was going to be doing the construction inspection and why. And so I feel that the board deserves an answer to that question, and the taxpayers as well. First, I'd like to say the reason we have construction inspection services is because with any large capital project or any critical project, it's important to watch what the contractor is doing, okay? The contractors are nice people, but they make mistakes. They might misinterpret the project specifications. There may be a need for a field change, and so we need educated, experienced people in the field to work with the contractor. And also, sometimes the contractors may take shortcuts that might not be in the village's best interests, okay? So with a $3 million water storage tank project, $2 million, we really need to have the village's interests protected. That's why we're out there. What we propose is that we use my firm, particularly this gentleman, to do the construction inspection for this project. The last 2 capital improvement projects we worked on were the intake vault and the sewer plant roof project. And what we did is we had Tisdale be the design engineer, and we had some of my inspectors doing the continuous or day-to-day inspection of it. The reason we feel this is better for the village is that we feel we provide better value for the village because we've got a closer proximity to Rouses Point than Tisdale Associates does, for example. We're around here most of the time anyways, working on other projects, working on the village engineer contract, and we've got very competitive prices, and we feel you get more for less with us. And so with Eric here, I propose to designate him as the resident project representative. That's right in the project specifications. John Carr is amenable to that. And so if you see Eric around here a lot more now, it's because his #1 priority is the water storage tank. Money has been budgeted for these services for the last 2 fiscal years. For example, last year, just a fraction of the budget was used because we only did the sewer plant roof project. This year, to the best of my knowledge, there's also a line item for construction inspection on the water and sewer projects. We'll see how much of the work is done. That will dictate how much of the budget gets used. So I wanted to clarify that for the board and for the village. Is there any questions on that? Is that confusing in any way, or?
Makes sense. It's a good idea.
Okay. And with that,
Well, I think one of the questions was, and I told Doug that some of the board members and people thought that we were duplicating services. We're really not.
no.
We're not paying Carr, we're paying Doug.
And Tisdale will be over here occasionally for project progress meetings, once every 2 weeks, once every 4 weeks. But if there's anything happening out there that needs to be watched, Eric will be on it, or I'll be on it. And also, you've got a very diligent water plant staff who has taken ownership of the project, and they'll be watching it also. Eric will be here the second board meeting of every month to give you detailed updates, and that's it. Eric?
Evening. Just brief update of where we are today. As Doug indicated, there was a water issue at the site. The contractor, with some help from Bobby Clark and our office, put in a proper drainage ditch to the south. We had the water from the west side of the tracks was draining in across and then going out across the project. So put a ditch in it to the south, and we're keeping that away. They did probably 90% of the clearing and grubbing, started the excavation for the tank foundation itself. But with the continued rain, all you're going to see in the next week is more dewatering. They're within 2 feet of the final subgrade for the foundation, and they don't want to open that up until they know they have a good stretch of weather that they'll be able to open it up and put some concrete down to protect that subgrade, so we'll have a good foundation for the tank to be going up on. There seems to be a discrepancy on the Texas office and the local office about what the schedule is for the site. So John Carr, Tisdale Associates, going to be calling them up and letting them know that they need to set a schedule and hold to the schedule, and when they change the schedule, that they go through his office so he's aware, because every time I call him up, he tells me what's going on, then I tell him what's actually happening. So nothing real serious is happening, but we want to set the tone so the contractor understands that this is the village's project. This is the village's money, and it's going to be built when the village can watch it and the village can be sure of what's happening. So we just need to set the tone at the beginning of the project. Any questions at this point?
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Trustee Osborne. Trustee Penfield,
Okay.
double duty tonight.
Yes. The first item I have is something for the 2002 MEUA Annual Conference and Awards. It looks like the annual conference is going to be held from August 27th through August 30th this year in Saratoga Springs. And there are also a couple of awards. Please consider your employees and officials for the following awards. There's a service award and a person of the year award. I don't know if we have anyone for whom those would be appropriate. Nominate. It says we have until July 26th. If you come up with a candidate, we can get that information to them no later than July 26th to meet the printing deadlines for those. And also for the reservations, I believe, for the conference, it says no later than July 26th as well. Is that something that we should think about and then perhaps do the next
That's the
meeting?
one you went to last year.
Right,
And I think we should do it now, because what I see is this thing going real fast.
okay.
I like the guns, Mayor. I haven't been to one yet.
You're
You want to
doing
get
it.
it?
Yes, I would like to go again if I could.
Okay, Mr. Clark and myself, there will be 4 of us,
Make a motion.
unless you want to go, Brian.
I'm so busy in August now.
You mean we have that many aliens coming across the
No,
board?
I just, too many places to be, George.
Just be.
I know you will.
And I know I talked to Dale already, and Dale does not want to go.
Okay,
You want a motion for 4 people to go to the
Yes.
conference?
Yeah.
I'd like to make that motion.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded, any discussion? There being no discussion, all those in favor, vote by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried.
And the second thing I have on behalf of trustee Menard is the summer continuing judicial education program. I have 2 authorizations to travel, one for Village Justice William Herzog and one for the court clerk Marie Quayne, and I'd like to make a motion that we approve the 2 of them traveling to this particular conference in Potsdam, and it is on the 21st of July through the 23rd of July.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded, any discussion? There being no discussion, all those in favor, vote by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried.
And I have a couple of things on my own report this evening. The first is that we did have a meeting on June 6th with Mr. Southwick from the phone company discussing the possibility of putting a direct line back into the Dodge Memorial Library. He did say that it would be very easy to do that. It would cost them around $25 a month, and they do have the money in the budget to allow them to do that. I think that we could go ahead and give them the go-ahead, but I wanted to make sure to talk to you all first about it to see whether or not you felt that that was something that we wanted to do.
As long as I get the money, that's fine. You need a motion on that, Beth, or? can you
Yes.
just- Okay, I'll make a motion that we set up another line for the phone company. Or from the phone company for the Dodge Memorial Library, excuse me.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, any discussion? I still feel personally that we set up this system to save money, and that was the way of doing it. I think we're starting to compromise it. I just see a floodgate opening. But that's end of my comments. No other discussion, all those,
Need to vote on
pardon?
the, need to vote
I
on
said, I'm just about to do that. No other discussion, all those in favor of the motion, vote by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, aye.
Okay, the second thing I have is a discussion of a memo that we received from Mr. Rasco, Code Enforcement Officer, and it deals with the property at 5 and 7 Montgomery Street. And apparently he has gone over again and has revealed the following dangerous and unsafe conditions when inspecting the property. And his recommendations are in the bottom. So I would like to make a motion that we authorize Mr. Rasco to proceed with the information that's contained in his memo to us.
Second.
Bob, how much to fix this building approximately? You got a
One
ballpark?
idea.
By the looks of it, it looks like it's almost ready to be torn down.
It's hard to say, you'd have to have a contractor look at it real close.
How many apartments? 4?
Fine.
5.
Yeah.
Boy, it looks bad. It looks bad when you go by. And
I would say it's gonna be super expensive, more than it's worth, but that's my opinion.
Any other discussion? I need a motion.
I had made a motion that
I'm
we
sorry.
allow Mr. Rasco to proceed with what he has
I'm sorry.
written here. That's okay?
Second. Any other discussion? And being no other discussion, all those in favor, vote by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. What?
I'd also,
I heard that.
I'd also like to make a motion that we appoint Bobby Clark as an inspector if a second inspection is necessary at the building. And I think this would be after 20 days, Bob, is that right?
Yeah, that's a standard procedure according to the village code.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? There being no discussion, all those in favor, vote by usual sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
And the last item I have concerns Maple Street. I was approached by a village resident about the school zone signs and the speed limit posting on Maple Street. And I think that that individual is interested in having us make sure that it is signed correctly and that we have some discussion about what's what in terms of the Champlain Learning Center and then the Rouses Point Elementary School. So I guess there's some concern that the school zone begins at one end and never ends until you pass.
The signs
The
have been
second
ordered,
building.
I believe, haven't they, or are here?
And I would ask that either you speak to Police Chief Craig or ask him to do a memo to you, because he spent a great deal of time investigating that, and he has it all mapped out exactly to the foot of where it begins, where it ends, and exactly what goes on, and he spent time on the phone with Mr. DeGranbury.
Great.
So he has already investigated that, and I just would request permission to ask him to do a memo to the entire board.
Absolutely.
That'd be great.
Well, just for your information, Kelly, on that, so that you know, I talked to Chief Craig about that, sometime this past week.
Right.
And there was some concerns about the distance, like you said, and one of them was the Champlain Learning Center, and they said, well, it's not a school, so it doesn't need to be signed. He assured me that there was a request coming from the superintendent of schools that be included, because school buses do stop there and let off children and pick up children. So they wanted school, and there's a letter coming from the superintendent of schools to the chief police to include that.
So it sounds like when the new signs arrive, then we'll be all set.
I think they're here. Or are they on order?
They're on order right now.
Yeah,
Great.
them and them new special ones with the fancy colors. Yeah.
We ordered everything we could afford.
I took a ride with one of the residents and he showed me the law, and then we looked and we drove, and it looked like it wasn't.
It wasn't that it wasn't being addressed, it had been addressed, but it's just in the process.
Right.
Yeah. Anything else?
That is all that I have.
Thank you, ma'am. Trustee Jefferson.
Okay, Doug, do you have anything to report from the sewer? I haven't seen Tommy this week.
Just on the sewer plant, we made tremendous progress last week on a significant industrial media plant for Wyeth. And so we'll be issuing that to the DEC for their review this week. So hopefully we'll have a draft going out to Wyeth next week, and that's been a long time coming. And then we will start on the water code. And regarding sewer, that's all I have to report.
A lot of progress going on. Okay, I have a couple things to bring up. First of all, I'd like to make a motion to waive the open container law in the village of Rouses Point during the 4th of July festivities. That'll be Friday, June 28th, Saturday the 29th, and the parade is going to be June 30th. So I'd like to make a motion to waive it. We do it every year. There's quite a few parties in the village, and it's just good for business.
We don't waive it for the whole village though. We
Well-
only waive it for the rec center. Am I right? For the last couple of years?
I think it's for this area.
Well, I mean, they do it at the Saxon, they have that big party up
They
there.
have it,
It's
I think the
on
police
private
chief-
property.
that's on private property though.
Oh, it is? Okay, so then I'll have to amend my motion then, because I was incorrect.
I don't have a problem with amending or suspending it, but I believe the last 2 or 3 years we've done it just where the beer tent area is.
Well, we're gonna do
That
that.
could be corrected, you know.
Why don't you?
I think Bob Craig had requested that the last couple of years.
Amend the open container as in previous years.
Yeah, I'd
And
like
we
to
can check it.
amend my motion, but,
Beth knows everything.
Okay. Okay. And a second to that?
You got it.
Second. Any more discussion?
Okay, and I'd also like to make.
Wait a minute.
Oh, sorry.
All those in
sorry.
favor, vote
Sorry,
by-
excuse me.
All those in favor, vote by usual sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried.
I'm into motions tonight. I'd like to make a motion to, we have a peddler's permit in the village. And during the 4th of July celebration, we let people go around the village and sell items during the parade. So we'll have to waive that for the village, the peddler's permit. So I'd like to make a motion that we would waive the peddler's permit for the following days, June 28th, June 29th, and June 30th.
Have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Have we done that for other than the parade in the past?
Never have
We've done it for all 3 days?
We have never, we had never suspended it that I know of peddler's permit.
See,
I
during
think
the,
he's just covering his.
during the weekend, they sell stuff like,
Because normally we would get a peddler's permit for people selling hot dogs on the corner, for people doing the ice cream over in the park. So just to be on the legal side, Mike thought it was a good idea, and I agree with him.
Okay.
Because we've had other people come in that want to sell this summer, and we have already sold peddler's permit to other people that aren't going to be doing it during that time. So to make it fair for them, you really should waive it during that time. If you're gonna let other people do what we're gonna charge at another time during the summer.
I don't understand what you just said. I'm sorry.
We have already sold peddler's permits for the month of July and August, but people
Okay.
are gonna be doing the same thing you're gonna allow to be done during the 4th of July festivities. So if you don't waive it for the 4th of July, it really isn't fair to charge the other people, so you need to waive it for that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
they sell
Because
ice
you're going to
cream.
allow people, you're going to charge people to do the same thing at other times. If you don't waive it for those 3 days.
Right.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor, vote by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried.
Okay, just a couple other things we gotta talk about. We haven't even got to the parade yet, and we've already got bad news that we don't have a committee for next year. So, while it's hot in everybody's mind, I'd like to throw it out to the village residents, and it's very good for business, it's good for the village, it brings a lot of people to the village. I don't wanna see the 4th of July parade go by the wayside. We've spent a lot of time the last 4 or 5 years, so it's very important that somebody steps forward and takes the bull by the horns, whether it's the fire department or whether it's local residents, but we have to have a committee. So if there's anybody that's interested in the village, please contact me. Between now and the 4th of July, we're gonna do this year, but Mike said we've had a good run, but it's been too long and he's tired of doing it, and the Marlows are tired of doing it, and so I guess it's time for some new blood. So that's bad news, but it's better off to get it out while we're in the festival mood. Just a couple other things. We had quite a bit of flooding here in the village the last week, and it looks like there might be some more in the forecast. We had a problem with the senior citizens, and I talked to George. Ross and Nancy Jackson had trouble at their house, and Harvey Boutin had trouble at his house, and we got a lot of rain in a short amount of time. So, and I think it's going to be corrected. Bobby has looked into it, and Woodrow Brothers has looked into it, and I think there's 2-3 different parties that are involved. So hopefully we can take care of that. Ray's from Ray's Appliance approached me again when I was down getting a donation for the 4th of July, and are we going to be able to announce
About the property as far as putting up for bid.
That's cleared all the hurdles, hasn't it, Ben?
Yeah,
That,
as far as Ray's property.
In back of race?
Yes, I thought that was moving along.
Oh, I thought it was up in the paper, but then they said, no, it wasn't. So,
I know we cleared all the hurdles on that.
I think everything from our standpoint,
didn't we have to put it in the paper though?
Don't we have to advertise that for sale?
I thought that we already published that.
No,
Well,
not that I know of.
We did everything from our end that had to be done. It was from the other end things had to be done. Let us look into that.
okay. So, but what he basically wants to do is he wants to expand the store, but he can't do it till he has the
Well, we'll
property.
look into that first thing in the morning, but
Okay.
I think that our end of the paperwork is done on that.
yeah.
But let us look into that.
Okay, thank you.
And that's all I have to report tonight, Mr. Mayor.
One more thing before we close. The July 1st meeting, the Rouses Point Village Board will be in this room starting at 6:30 p.m. That's for Calvin's purposes.
Call me.
And with that, I open it to the public. Oh, I'm sorry, that,
I have nothing.
All right, Sam?
Same thing.
Bob, Doug,
We're
that's
just,
enough.
we're just looking, meeting with Mr. Delio regarding his subdivision, and we're looking at that, checking that for compliance with prevailing codes. We'll keep you posted on that.
Thank you.
Will there be a street that will hook into Phillips Avenue?
Correct.
Okay, 'cause somebody asked me
That's
that.
the intention, yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Make a motion,
Eric?
Jim?
No.
I'm fine.
Okay, make a motion recess, 5 minutes.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're recessed for 5 minutes.